riding a rigid mountain bike is a lot of fun, and I think everyone would benefit from trying it. But for people who own just one bike like me, it could be a bit too much. Let's talk about it. Hey everyone, it's Hardtail Steve here, and I love mountain biking for the fun of it. Just big kids riding silly bikes in the woods. I like riding slow tech, I like riding fast flow, I like doing small to medium jumps and drops. But today we're going to do a follow-up on my rigid mountain biking experience. First of all, let's talk about what I like about riding a rigid mountain bike. Have you seen this thing? It looks ridiculous, and that is an absolute plus. I mean, it turns my head, it turns heads into trails, it starts conversations, people ask why, people ask what, people ask why again. It's incredible. I love the way it looks, and it's just kind of silly. Another thing I like about riding rigid is that it forces you to be present. Now, I know when you're on a full squish bike and you're bombing down a trail, you're present. But when you're on a rigid bike, doesn't matter what speed you're going, you best be present because it will not cover your mistakes. If you make a mistake, it will let you know. In a way, there's this honesty about it that, you know, when you have 8 inches of travel, it's not the same. Another thing I like about the riding rigid is that I don't really have to worry about maintenance or settings. I mean, I check the tire pressure and I'm good to go. At the moment, I'm riding about 8 to 9 PSI. It's working so far. It still doesn't have quite enough, but also just enough? I don't know, hard to say. Some of you might know that my fork has gone in, my regular fork, a Fox 36, has gone in for service, and that's also a perfect time for me to try the rigid. I just got a bill. The suspension fork costs me $700, and this rigid fork, I think if you buy a brand new one, it's like $400, $450, and that's it. You're not gonna break it. It doesn't need any maintenance till the end of time. It'll outlast you. So I like the way it looks. I like the way that there's no settings, it's easy, and I like that it keeps you present and honest. That's a lot of things to like, but okay, let's touch on the things that I don't like so much. Well, it's got no travel. So there are days when we're like, yeah, we need a little help from our bikes. And this rigid fork's like, nope. Every single day, day in, day out, it's like, nope. If you don't have it in you, don't ride this. Go around the feature, come back another day. But yeah, this fork is not going to come in and save your butt because that's on you. Some days I can really use a confidence booster or just like having a wingman, you know, like having that suspension fork being like, yeah, I got you. At the bottom of that roll, that G out, I got you, right? The rigid fork's like, your arm's good today because you need it. Along that route, I feel like the rigid fork can sometimes eat into my fun, especially because I don't just like slow, janky tech. I think the rigid is perfect for slow, janky tech, but I do like fast, flowy, smallish to medium jumps and drops. And the rigid is just a bit too rough for me. Now I know there's some people out there with much stronger joints than I have. Good for you. I really think you should try a rigid fork. For me though, I do feel that I find myself just doubting, questioning whether I should or not, especially because I've ridden some of these trails on my hardtail. But on the rigid, I find myself holding back. And that's one thing that I am not a huge fan of. I'm out there to have fun. I'm not out there to prove anything. I'm not out there to, I don't know, be Superman or anything. I just want to have fun. And there are times when I do feel like the rigid fork gets in the way of me just having some silly fun. Actually, on that note, I made a commitment to you saying that I would do it for 3 months, but I feel like I have to take that back. And here's why. Jacqueline, my coach, has actually noticed that there are features that I used to ride on a hardtail that I am no longer riding. I'm walking or riding around, and is really getting in the way of my progression. I am out there to progress because I feel like by progressing, I am increasing the envelope for the type of fun and how much fun I can have. And so right now, the rigid fork is getting in the way of that progression. And so Jacqueline just suggested that, hey, you know what? This is prime progression time. It's summer. This is the best time for me to get on my bike, to push my boundaries in a way that I'm comfortable. And having a suspension fork, riding a hardtail, is much more my level than a rigid. She's like, yeah, you can always put the rigid back on in the winter when we're not pushing as hard, when the time for progression isn't as prime. And I think she makes a really good point. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm going to pause on the rigid fork challenge for the summer. I'm going to go back to my suspension fork, or a different suspension fork, I don't know. Like I said, did you hear about the $700 service bill? I'm gonna have to find another option because I don't have $700 kicking around. But I will go back to Hardtail for the summer. I'll go back to learning how to be better, how to ride better. I'll try to progress as far as I can, all while maintaining the most important part of mountain biking to me, which is having fun. And then in the winter or in the fall or some other time, I will come back. I'll do a rigid fork part 2, but with some added twists. You know, I'm gonna change the handlebars a bit. Andrew suggested that I do a different bar that has more give, it's a little more swept back, different grips, which will really help with the palm and the palm feel. And I'll give the rigid fork a second go, because I feel like it deserves it. I think that anyone who's curious, if you're lucky enough, fortunate enough to have access to a setup or know someone like Andrew, and you're able to try rigid, I definitely think you should. Anyways, if you're relatively new to riding but you love it and you want to do it all the time, then you've come to the right place. I'm eager to ride all the trails and to learn all the things, so make sure you subscribe and follow along on our mountain biking adventures. Thanks for watching, and see you in the trails. Okay, not today.
All right.